In this video, we're going to take a look at a blue ink by Private Reserve's DC Supershow Blue. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the blue ink playlist, so if you want to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo, sheen. We do have a light peppering of shading that is happening in the extra fine. You see some darker spots that do occur. Same thing with the medium. We're definitely getting some darker spots. It's showing some personality. This was me smudging it a bit after I thought it was dry, but occasionally that sort of thing does happen. The scrubby for both show good color variation, and we really do get good color variation here, but not so much in the stub. The smear test says you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then an Aurora Optima with a broad nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. There's no bleeding, but there's significant ghosting with the stub and minor ghosting with the extra fine and medium. Now we have no feather, spread, halo, sheen. We get good tone variation where the extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub and the medium is darker than the stub. And we do get little spots of shading throughout the extra fines, light peppering of it. Nothing in the medium or stub. Extra fine took 18 seconds to dry, while the medium took a whopping 41 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both are giving us no color variation. We're not getting any in the writing, except the peppering in the extra fine, my bad. And the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this is a very true blue, and it's really running from the water and gathering at the top. Now the one on the right that's let dry for 10 minutes looks exactly the same. If it wasn't for the letter D that I put there, I wouldn't be able to tell which one was let dry or not. I don't expect any resistance from this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting, except it's ghosting a little on the scrubby, no big deal. We have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We get some tone variation where the extra fine's lighter than the stub, the medium's darker than everything on the page, and we do get some shading, some light spotting of dark spots throughout the extra fine. Not so much in the medium and definitely not in the stub. Strange that I say definitely not, as if it's even more pronounced. The extra fine took 8 seconds to dry, while the medium took 17. Now the scrubby for both show no color variation, although we do get that peppering of shade throughout the extra fine. The extra fine took 8 seconds to dry, while the medium took 17. I think I skipped that part. The smear test says you could recover the extra fine, but maybe not the medium if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it does feather a bit when it's reactivated, which I'm not surprised by based on the chromatography. However, all of the information is holding together, which gives me some confidence using it in a note-taking situation if I needed to go back and highlight. Water's lifting some of it, but not all of it, which I was really very surprised by. Pen flush is doing just a little bit more than water is. You start to see some of the white of the paper coming through, and the 1/3 bleach solution is destroying this ink, but it only took water to get it out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper. We do this not so much to look at performance differences, but to look at color changes that go on. Now, what we wind up with is from a very vivid blue to a very blue-leaning turquoise. So it's one of these things to be aware of, that this ink is a little bit more translucent, so the yellow paper is going to alter its color. Look at how different the extra fine is. Amazing. Just curious. Yes, even the shading shows up a bit better there. But it's an entirely different color on the yellow paper. Something to be very aware of if you work in a professional setting on yellow paper. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Private Reserve's DC Supershow Blue has a viscosity of 1.46, so it's wet. If you're interested in how the viscosity test and all that's done, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now let's take a look at TWSBI notebook paper. No bleeding, there is some very minor ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, only a slight bit of tone variation. The extra fine's a little bit lighter than a stub, while the medium's the same tone. Extra fine took 18 seconds to dry and the medium took 14. Scrubby for both give us no color variation, and we're not getting any. And the smear test, you probably couldn't recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Private Reserve's DC Supershow Blue has an average dry time of 19 seconds, making it normal. The last writing sample is done on Leuchtturm 1917 paper. We have no bleed, but some minor ghost at the stub, not so much with the extra fine or medium. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no real shadings coming through, but we are getting some tone variation where the extra fine looks just a hair lighter than the stub, but the medium much darker than the stub. Extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while the medium took 12. Scrubby for both give us no color variation in the writing. We didn't get any in the writing. And the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Private Reserve's DC Supershow Blue, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a pink ink, also from Private Reserve, Rose Pink. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description is a link to those playlists. So what do I think of Private Reserve's DC Supershow Blue? The spots of shading come through as much darker and look really good. I do, and then you see there's a mistake that happened with the pen. Strange. I do enjoy the vivid tone that this blue is giving me. I really do think it's worth its money, without a doubt. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? Now, I really do think it's a dealer's choice in that it always looks good. However, I really prefer in a wet fine or a wet broad. I actually find that fines and broads tend to be more my preferences over mediums. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Diamine's Blood Orange.